It looked like they're about to recycle. Before we get into this video, make sure you hit like, share my videos, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Also, make sure that your notifications are on and they're set to all. Now, let's get into this. But first, quick commercial break. Now, with inflation now at 8.5% and maybe higher, don't you think you need to be smarter with your money? You need it to grow, not debt. Start a gold IRA with Noble Gold right now and you'll be safe. And this month, every cash deal above 20K, you'll get an incredible 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin, completely free as a thank you. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold. And all you have to do is call 877-646-5347 now just to find out a little more. And you can also visit noblegoldinvestments.com. January 6th, y'all. What's going on, America? Kevin from Kevin's Corner, where I try to make sense out of nonsense. That's right. They're about to recycle January 6th. You know how the Democrats are. They have their favorite talking points and issues that they recycle back and forth. You got gun control, then you got abortion, then you got January 6th, then you're going to get, voter rights, and then you're going to get all of that stuff. You know, they don't have a winning message. So what they're going to do is go back to this whole thing of January 6th, and hopefully they could manipulate enough people to get mad and come out in November thinking that January 6th is going to be the tipping point, the thing that everybody's, very upset about and find to be one of the top priorities when it comes down to making their decisions about who they vote for. January 6th, that's right. They want to get to the bottom of it. So they're about to have their hearings. And of course, The View, unfortunately, has their opinion on it. Now, recently, they have brought in somebody on The View who seems to be somewhat rational, a black lady, y'all, so they can't call her a white nationalist or a racist. And she is trying to help the people out on The View understand that they're going to lose big if they put their eggs in that J6 basket, but they don't want to listen. So let's get into it.
Watch that. So people understand exactly what happened. And so what is the smoking gun here? What is the breaking news?
Well, I know what we're waiting for.
People will turn in once the Department of Justice says, okay, here are the charges.
Well, I have to disagree with you there.
Let me finish. We want some criminal charges if that's what you want. That's what we'll see next. We're not even going to see that in these 9 hearings.
No.
And then if we think about the actual intention of this, there's a sentiment that Democrats need to rebrand this midterm message, right?
Yeah.
So by airing this, you're going to remind everybody like, hey, Trump is aligned with other conservatives, and even though that's not always true, there's plenty of people who spoke out against this. And so now, reminder, don't vote for these people in the midterms because you want to keep the majority. And I think that that is a losing message by looking in the past and not looking in the future because there's things on top of mind for people. There are things like feeding your baby, which I talked about yesterday. There are things on top of mind like people wanted to know if a recession is looming. There are things on top of mind like wondering how to pay for your gas.
I think Americans are smart enough.
Okay, now here comes Rocks in the voice. Here comes grown man voice. Wolfman Jack sounding tight braids in the head. Whoopi Cushionberg, who's coming in. I think that Americans are smart enough. See, she can't just sit back and take this woman's advice and assessment to heart because see, Whoopi's mission is to undermine any possibility of Trump winning or the Republicans winning. In fact, that's everybody on that panel's goal and objective, except for the reasonable sounding lady who's, completely outnumbered. So here comes the cushion off the bench to try to undermine what she's saying, as if what she's saying doesn't make any sense. Now, we all know that people aren't worried about J6. People pretty much have made their opinion on it. The bubbleheads have bought into whatever they bought into, and we have assessed it the way we've assessed it, and nobody's really going to change our opinion. We all know that there wasn't no deep conspiracy, but the Democrats have very little to run on. In fact, they have nothing to run on but a horrific economy. Now, if they think that January 6th is going to put food on the table, if January 6th is going to put those gas prices down to a point where people can afford them, if they think that, by all means, have at it. So here comes Whoopi Cushion trying to upsell the importance of getting to the bottom of J6. Let's hear what the cushion got to say with those rocks in her voice.
Americans are smart enough to be able to have more than one thought in their head about what's going on. Maybe hold on. Now, I heard you. I understand. But I think that we do a disservice to the public when we suggest that they're not thinking about those things as well. They are. And Americans know here are the things that are going on, but we also want to know that when we go to sleep, we're not going to wake up in some new country.
Now, what in the world is the cushion talking about? See, she's sitting back saying that people are serious about getting to the bottom of this and they want to know what's going on. No, These are not conservatives. See, when we look at some of the obvious corruption that took place from the Democrats, we really want to get to the bottom of it because we know there's no justice to be found. See, when we sit back and we see Hillary Clinton getting away with stuff and we see them spying on the Trump campaign and on Trump, when we see all of that stuff, of course, we want to get to the bottom of it because those are real threats to our democracy. Those are real forms of insurrection, sedition, all of that. And it appears that no justice is being found. See, we have legitimate smoking guns like that laptop with Joe Biden's name all in it and so on and so forth and them covering it up. Those are real reasons to get to the bottom of stuff. But they have no real reason to try to get to the bottom of this J6 thing with the exception of we're trumping up this whole J6 thing because we have nothing else. We're going to abuse our power and try to make something out of nothing when we have nothing to ride in on. So here she comes talking about we don't want to wake up and our country be taken out from underneath us like it has already been. Why do you think so many people was up there in the first place, Cushion? Why do you think so many conservatives have a problem with what's going on around the country? Is it simply because they're white nationalists and stuff? Or could it be that they're witnessing things that make them feel like they are being targeted and abused as citizens and their vote, their opinion, and their rights are being rolled right out from underneath them? See, but Cushion thinks she's the one in jeopardy and that threat of her country being taken from her. So let's see if we can go ahead and flush this out of the cushion.
And I think people want to know that, and they want to see that somebody is doing something. So I think we're going to have to watch and see.
What?
We're going to have to watch and see. None of us have both. No. None of us have crystal balls.
That's got to
see. To see what's coming. None of us will know. We won't know until Thursday.
Well, the reason I think when you raise the thing about people have more, they're thinking about their meals, inflation, baby formula, I agree. And then I stop and say, but without a democracy, this still could so easily become what Ukraine is going through, what Russia's going through, where it could get worse than it is right now if we're not watching.
What in the world is this lady talking about? Without a democracy? How in the world can you rationally believe that the people on January 6th was a threat to our democracy? Do you really believe as an intelligent human being that a ragtag group of people that was a lot of them elderly, a lot of them with just MAGA hats and phones and looked or appeared to be a little bewildered by the fact that they ended up in the Capitol in the first place? What in the world makes you think that they were a legitimate threat to the democracy? Do you think they were going to overturn the U.S. government? How was they going to secure that building? How are they going to keep the power? What were they going to do once they get in there? What about our special forces? All of that stuff didn't cross these people's mind. Do she really believe that the democracy was at threat because of these people? And that's a legitimate reason for people to take the January 6th committee that is obviously biased and has a goal and objective that is purely politically motivated seriously? Are you kidding me? I mean, she doesn't look to be dumb, but she sounds dumb. So with that being said, I'm going to have to throw her in the category of the rest of the dummies on The View. I don't know her political position, but I'm assuming she's probably a liberal and paid to get out there and spew out some stupidity just like we heard come out of her mouth. Because if she wasn't paid to do that, there's no way she would have said that. Now, guys, Tucker Carlson, the man that you hear The View talking about all the time, got a whole different take on what took place on January 6th. Legitimate questions that reasonable people would have. Not like people on The View. Legitimate questions like people like us that got common sense. People like us that feel like we were the victims of our democracy being at threat. So let's hear Tucker's take on it. I think it might differ a little bit from these knuckleheads.
A year and a half after January 6th, that is much in the news right now. It's interesting that even the most basic questions about what actually happened that day remain mysteriously unanswered. First and most obviously, if you've seen the tape, why did law enforcement open the doors of the building and let protesters walk right into the Capitol?
Now, that's a good question Whoopi and all of them should be asking if they had common sense and brains. Any rational thinking person would say, wait a minute, I need to see the evidence. I need to be able to look at January 6th and see all of the behavior of what would appear to be an insurrection or overrunning the police and the security and stuff. So does it look like security is being overwhelmed and overran when they're going like this? Come on in, walking up the stairs with their arms around people? Does that look like they're being overwhelmed? Does that look like an insurrection? What were they doing? Huh? That's a good question, Tucker, that Whoopi and them don't have the intelligence to ask. Let's continue. What other questions a reasonable person might ask? And I pray to God that during this J6 hearing, that these Republicans come out and ask all of these reasonable questions along with some I'm going to ask in a second. I hope they come out and they destroy these Democrats and these rhinos just trying to push this propaganda mess and prepare to try to overturn and upset the apple cart in November. So let's see some more reasonable questions that one might ask.
That's bizarre behavior, no matter what they say.
It is bizarre.
So why did it happen?
Good question.
And then once it did happen, why did authorities lie to the country for months and tell us that Officer Brian Sicknick had been murdered by the mob?
They did say
when
that.
in fact the medical examiner determined that he died of a stroke hours later. Just tonight on CBS News, we were informed just a moment ago, as Nora O'Donnell stared on like it was true, that 5 police officers were murdered by the mob on January 6th. Really?
I think that's a lie. I think that might be some propaganda. Why are they telling people that? Why are they lying? Why do you got to make up stuff if it's true? Interesting. And they're sticking to the lies. Let's continue.
We know of one killing on January 6th, and that killing was committed by Officer Michael Byrd.
Oh, I heard of that guy.
Police officer with a confirmed record of highly reckless behavior with firearms, and yet for some reason, he was allowed to shoot an unarmed, non-threatening woman in the neck. Why was he allowed to do that? What was the justification? No one's ever told us.
No one.
Why is that? And by the way, just how many FBI agents and DOJ informants were active in the crowd on January 6th? And what exactly were they doing there? Why can't we know the answer to that question? Seriously.
Yes, we have all kind of questions. You know, like just a couple off the top of my head. Why was Bigfoot Epps taken off of that FBI most wanted list after he was out there being one of the #1 stunners in regards to we got to go into the Capitol? Why was he taken off that list? Why hasn't he been arrested? You know, questions like that. Why haven't Nancy Pelosi brought in to be questioned about why she turned down tens and thousands of potential people coming in for extra security when Trump offered it? Why would Trump offer extra security by the military, whoever else, when he had an insurrection in mind? Wouldn't that be an obstacle to his plans for an insurrection? Wouldn't that hinder the progress? I mean, these are questions that I want to know, you know, so let's continue, Tucker. Maybe he has some more that I missed.
And why did Kamala Harris lie about where she was on January 6th? And why there's still no leads on those 2 attempted pipe bombings on Capitol Hill? Remember those? There are massive amounts of physical evidence, but the FBI apparently has gotten nowhere.
Nowhere.
How come? And so on. So there is still, once again, a remarkable amount that we don't know about what happened that day, despite the fact they tell us it was the largest FBI investigation in American history. That's very strange.
It's very strange because it sounds like they wasted their money, resources, and time because they've came up with nothing. You're telling me that the FBI still cannot find a potential bomber, somebody who tried to apparently assassinate our vice president, but there's no leads? They're not even trying to find this dude? Are you kidding me? See, I don't understand. These are questions that everybody during these hearings need to be pressing these fake behind Democrats and these rhinos, because these are rational questions that dumb people don't think about or ask. See?
But tonight we want to get to the most basic question of all that you never hear asked.
Which is what?
And it's this. Why did so many Trump voters show up at the Capitol in the first place? Somehow no one's ever really explained that. For a year and a half, Democrats have searched for a smoking gun that would prove some sort of pre-planned conspiracy to storm the Capitol. They haven't found that because there wasn't a pre-planned conspiracy. So instead they've told us that the crowd converged on the Capitol that day because their orange cult leader commanded them to. Now, Trump did encourage a protest that day, that is true, but it's not a real explanation for what happened next.
True, Tucker. Not to mention, Trump said, go and protest peacefully. Let your voices peacefully be heard. But for some reason, the Democrats translated that into go and violently overthrow the Capitol, I guess hang Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi and so on and so forth. What is that dog whistle? That only they interpreted and heard. Because, see, I guess their interpretation of all of us conservatives is that we're all white nationalists, we're all racists, we're all white supremacists, and so on and so forth. We're all unintelligent people that can't understand basic grammar. We can't understand what it means when somebody says, go over to the Capitol and let your voices peacefully be heard. See, we here as white nationalists, go over there and you take that Capitol by force, man. This is our time, man. Insurrection time, baby. Let's do it, man. That's what we all heard, right?
The people you saw outside the Capitol on January 6th were not brainwashed robots.
No, we weren't.
mindlessly following their leader, whatever you think of them. They weren't sociology students from Wesleyan telling you with a straight face there are 400 genders because their professors told them so.
No, that's
they're just the opposite. These were mostly sober middle-class people, older for the most part, small business owners from smallish towns far from the fashionable coasts. They're mostly passionately patriotic Americans, the kind who believe in the Bill of Rights and know what it says. These are people who genuinely love America, far more than, say, Chuck Schumer loves America. So why were they there? Why'd they go to the Capitol? Well, because, again, unlike Chuck Schumer, they actually believed in democracy.
What?
And they believed their democracy had been taken from them. They were convinced that the presidential election was unfair, which it certainly was. Some of them believed the election had been rigged. We'll let others debate whether that's true, but the fact is many that day believed it was true. And that itself is a huge problem for all of us going forward. The fact that large numbers of Americans believe democracy isn't real may itself be the biggest threat to our democracy. Because in order for our system to work, the population has to believe that it works. In other words, that our elections are fair and transparent and therefore legitimate.
So, in other words, Tucker, you telling me perception is reality. And if the Democrats were interested in protecting our democracy, they wouldn't be trying to force everybody who has some questions about it into silence. They wouldn't be trying to muscle us into believing that the democracy worked, but they would be trying to convince us. That's what you're telling me. But instead, what they're trying to do is demonize us and say, because we saw some obvious things that look suspicious, very obvious, we have no right to question it. We have no right to protest. We have no right to even do any of those things lest we undermine our democracy, right? That's the new rule? Okay, let's see how the Democrats are playing by their own rules.
You can't just censor or arrest people for thinking the system is rigged. You have to show them the system isn't rigged. That is your baseline obligation if you lead the country. And yet the Biden administration, amazingly, is doing just the opposite.
The opposite?
After screaming at the rest of us for questioning elections, that's immoral, they said. Joe Biden himself has begun to do just that.
No way.
Here's Biden in January.
Speaking of voting rights legislation, if this isn't passed, do you still believe the upcoming election will be fairly conducted and its results will be legitimate?
Well, it all depends on whether or not we're able to make the case to the American people that some of this is being set up to try to alter the outcome of the election.
You were asked whether or not you believed that we would have free and fair elections in 2022 if some of these state legislatures reformed their voting protocols. You said that it depends. Do you think that they would in any way be illegitimate?
It depends on whether or not we win or lose. If we lose, it's illegitimate. If we win, it's legit. You can't question it. That's how the Democrats roll. If they win, don't question our win, okay? In fact, we will use the power of the federal government to come after you, demonize you. We will form all kind of stupid little departments of dis and misinformation to try to go after you. We'll use the fake news to say you're believing in the big lie and you're undermining our democracy and you're a threat to our way of life and our institutions. We'll use all of that stuff when we win, and yet our win is suspicious. Instead of trying to secure our elections and make everybody feel that they're legit, we're going to bully you into believing that they're legit. Now, do you think that's going to help our democracy? Do you think that's going to make all of us who are being persecuted and told that we need to shut up about this and stop believing the big lie and removing our videos and snatching this out? That's not the behavior of a government that is interested in convincing people that the democracy works. That's the behavior of a banana republic or some type of dictatorship that's interested in bullying people into believing that the democracy works or silencing them into accepting that their democracy works. The democracy that works out for them, of course, not the democracy that the people want, but the democracy that is always working out in their favor. Yeah, see, that's not you trying to woo me with kindness, love, and trust. No, you're trying to muscle me into silence and accepting it. And I don't like that. Nobody likes that. But Creepy Sleepy, I'm sure, is going to play by his own rules, right?
Oh, yeah, I think it easily can be illegitimate.
Huh? So 2020 was the most secure election in American history. They tell us that endlessly. And you're not probably a criminal if you say otherwise. And they say that because Biden won. He got, what do they say, 81 million votes. But things are different now because the Democratic Party understands it will be severely punished. It will be spanked at the polls 5 months from now. So because they know what the outcome is going to be, Joe Biden is now telling us that that election could, quote, easily be illegitimate. Illegitimate? How would it be illegitimate? Well, if states required voter IDs at the polls to stop voter fraud, that would be racism. It would be the new Jim Crow. Remember that?
Jim Crow 2.0. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So they are launching a preemptive strike for November. They know they're going to get their butts beat. And whenever these Democrats are looking at a defeat, they already laid the groundwork for, of course, we were cheated. It's illegitimate. All of that crap we heard for 4 years. Hillary Clinton, he knows he's an illegitimate president. Nasty Pelosi talking about Trump was illegitimate. Saying Trump stole the election. Saying Russia stole the election. They undermined the heck out of our democracy. And then somehow magically pulled it off and put Joe Biden in with 81 million votes, miraculously, in spite of all of that overwhelming evidence and suspicion that we saw on the internet. And then to really make us feel secure about this whole situation, they then decided to silence and censor us if we didn't agree or accept the results of it. Now, nothing speaks voter security and democracy like a government silencing people who questions an election. That right there creates much faith in our democracy. You see how the Democrats roll? They have all of the characteristics of a banana republic, all of the characteristics of a socialist government, a fascist government, a communist government. They do all of the things that those governments do while yet crying about saving and protecting our democracy. Or is it protecting their power, their ideal of democracy? I think we know the answer to that. Now, God bless you. God bless America. I hope the heck these Republicans don't sit back and let these Democrats and these funky rhinos just completely run rampant during these J6 hearings. I hope they come with some realistic questions to put these people back on their heels and point out these very obvious discrepancies in this whole J6 narrative. Point out the fact that this is nothing more than another witch hunt and another stunt to try to undermine what's about to happen, like Tucker just mentioned. And I hope it happened. I hope they get their butts beat so bad. And if these Republicans win and get back in power, I hope they counter the whole investigation process that these raggedy Democrats are doing. Drag Nasty Pelosi in there, drag Cheney in there, drag every person in there that you think might have been connected with this garbage right here. Now, God bless you. God bless America. And boy, I can't wait to watch these hearings. It's going to be a show for the ages. See you next time in Kevin's Corner. Take care. God bless you. God bless America. Don't forget to hit that like button, share my videos, find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those good things. And please check out Extreme Teas, my sponsor. If you like their products, please click on the link below this video. Put Kevin in a promo code. You'll get a 20% discount. If you'd like to donate to Kevin's Corner, feel free. The links are below this video. If you want to be a part of my $2 a month club, also feel free to do that. All it entails is you simply dropping $2 a month into one of those links below the video. Or if you want, you can drop a nice big fat lump sum in there to offset the stuff that we know goes on with Big Tech. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Make sure that you are still subscribed. And finally, set your notification button to all, because YouTube is playing games, y'all. Now, God bless you. God bless America. See y'all next time in Kevin's Corner.